Hey pros, Crystal here from Crystal W Online, as well as Elite Hair Care USA and Elite Lifestyle. So today's video is a video that was actually requested by a viewer. They had a question in regards to fragrances. As you guys know, we literally just took on a distributorship with a company by the name of Le Pure Scents. This is a new venture for us, but it's not necessarily new to me in regards to the nature of the fragrance, all of that good stuff. So their question was if I could go more in depth in regards to how to get scents or your fragrances to last a lot longer. Now, of course, these tips that I'm going to give you can be used with any fragrance, but a lot of you don't know that many of these designer inspired fragrances don't necessarily last very long. And the reason why I say they don't necessarily last very long is because they're cheaply made but highly priced. So that is kind of the reason why I've kind of many moons ago gotten myself out of buying designer perfumes and colognes. Now, I still have some favorites, okay? I'm not saying that I would never buy any. But what I noticed was they were not lasting for me. And one thing with fragrances, they go along with a lot of your body chemistry. Everything that happens is really about the chemistry your body has that is very unique to every fragrance that you use. So not all fragrances are going to be for you. Not all fragrances are going to smell good to you. And not all fragrances are going to really last because of those reasons. I had to kind of think of a good word. So today I'm going to give you guys a couple of tips and expand on the tips that I've already given so that you guys have a better understanding as to how it works when you are choosing what scents or when you are utilizing your Le Pure scents. So first things first, if you're new to my channel, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and then also go ahead and follow my other channel, which is Crystal W Online on YouTube. Both of my channels are about everything: hair care, body care, lifestyle, just across the board. You know, your girl's very impromptu. So whatever channel I feel like using today is the channel that we're going to go on. Anyhow, but like I said, yes, you guys hit that thumbs up button. Also subscribe to my channel, all that good stuff. All right, so let's get into it. So these are samples of the Le Pure scents. So this is scent number 203, 214. 203 is the inspired Creed Adventus, and then scent 214 is the inspired Gucci Bloom, which has now become a favorite of mine. I already knew what Creed was. Creed has always just been Creed. One thing that I can say though about the Le Pure scents is they are spot on. And I'm actually going to drop in a short later today where I had my daughter test out the Black Opium from YSL, which is the designer version, and also the Black Opium or the inspired by Black Opium through Le Pure scents. And you're gonna be very surprised the information that you're gonna get. So you guys just prepare for that short. All right, so I have all my notes here. You guys know I'm a notes person. I like to write my stuff down. So if you see me looking down for any reason, that's why, because I'm a researcher. I like to be spot on with my information, and I don't want to give you guys bad information. So tip number 1, apply, and this one I've actually never given you guys. This tip is a tip that I've never actually said out loud, because a lot of things, you know, you'd be surprised that once I started distributing the Le Pure scents is when I noticed that a lot of people don't understand fragrance. They don't understand how it works. And they don't understand why they spend so much money and waste so much money on fragrances that really just don't work for them. They're not really suited for them, or you're just not using them right. Like we would call it user error. So that's what this video is going to be all about. So number 1, apply perfume on moisturized skin. Who didn't think of that? So hydrated skin holds fragrance better than dehydrated skin, right? Because hydrated skin is just like the hair. Wow, that is so crazy. It's just like the hair. Hydrated hair is going to always be better than dehydrated hair. So hydrated hair is going to receive in what we call the nutrients. It's going to thrive. It's going to flourish. Whereas dehydrated hair, it's going to absorb and hold on and release, because it's like, okay, that's not what I need. I need something else. So moisturizing your skin at night or right before literally applying your Le Pure fragrance is going to actually help that scent to hold a lot better, or that fragrance to hold a lot better than it would if your skin was not hydrated. Which kind of leads me into point or tip number 2. When we talk about layering your scents with other comparable products like lotions and oils. So before you put your scents on, you can put on a highly moisturizing lotion or one of your favorite Elite Total Body Care oils or any one of our body butters. You can put those on before you actually apply your fragrance. Now, what I will say is the less scent that actual lotion or oil carries, the better, because you don't want to clash, because some scents don't go with others. Now, we at some point will be offering the Le Pure lotions that complement the scents, which is the fragrances. So you won't have to worry about that, because it will just be complementary to each other. But let's say you don't have that. Well, if you have any form of unscented moisturizing lotion or unscented oil, or maybe you just make your own oils at home, you can apply those to the body first and then go ahead and apply or spray on your Le Pure scent of choice. That, number 1, is going to help to hydrate the skin. It's going to make the skin nice and dewy. It's also going to allow that skin to absorb that fragrance and make it longer lasting, where it literally will stay a lot longer, because there's a barrier, number 1, between your absorption and the actual fragrance. So some people, they have a high absorption rate. So the moment you put something on, it absorbs. If you have dehydrated skin, that is exactly what happens. So if your skin is dehydrated and you're wondering why your fragrance is not lasting long, or why you'll have on the fragrance for 20 minutes and then you don't smell it anymore, because the skin is dehydrated. The skin needs to be moisturized and prepared. It needs to be primed and ready to receive something, so that it puts a protective barrier between you and the scent. So the scent now becomes a top note rather than an absorbed note. So when we talk about notes, that's what they talk about with fragrances. It's all about notes, okay? So the top note is usually what you smell the most, okay? Tip number 3, which I've actually talked about pulse points, but I'm gonna go a little bit deeper when we talk about the pulse points, because a lot of people didn't even know what pulse points were in the first place, okay? So we have different pulse points by different names. All right, so the first one, I'm making sure I say this right. The first one is the brachial pulse. So your brachial pulse, or let me just be more specific. Let me back up. A pulse point is a specific part of the body where you can easily feel your pulse. So it's like this. Blood is flowing, and those veins or arteries are located right near the skin surface, okay? So anywhere you hear me talking about a pulse point is also an area where if you ever had to give blood, you ever had to receive an IV, that is typically where you will see those IVs located. Now, some of them are a little unorthodox, okay? And some of them don't necessarily count, but these pulse points is where you have access to where your arteries are closest to the surface of the skin, okay? And it's always pulsating, and you can feel your pulse within that area. So like I said, you have your brachial pulse. The brachial pulse, this is the inside of your elbow. This is typically where you get most of your blood work done, okay? Because your veins are so superficial. They're so right on the top. They're so exposed that this is typically where you'll get most of your blood work done. But this is also a pulse point for fragrance, because this is also where the body's doing this. So every time your body is moving silently to you, you know that you're alive. You know your blood is pumping. You know that you have a pulse, right? If you have a pulse, you're alive. Okay. It's pulsating and releasing those notes into the atmosphere for somebody to say, girl, what are you wearing? oh my gosh, what is that? That is why, because you're literally, your body's doing this all day, and it's releasing those scents into the atmosphere for people to smell. It's radiating, it's pulsating. All right. So that's your brachial pulse. Then you have your radial pulse, right? Your radial pulse is your wrist. You guys ever seen those videos or those movies where the woman would take her spray in her nice atomizer, which I actually have one here. I'll show you guys what I mean. So there's different atomizers. This one is a little more fancy. So this one is the one you guys will see in like the Marilyn Monroe. So this is an atomizer as well, okay? And you always see them go, they'll put it down and then they'll put it on their wrist, or they'll take it and they'll, and you know, real soft like and all that good stuff. Well, that is the reason, of course, we use atomizers for that. But the radial pulse is your wrist. This is also a pulse point for fragrance. Now, I will come back to the radial pulse, and I'm going to give you guys a pro tip as to why and how you are to use the radial pulse, if you're going to use that as a pulse point for your fragrance. Then we have the corded pulse, which is your neck. Okay, so there's two major arteries in the neck, for everybody that knows. They're kind of right in this area, and then they lead down into the body. This is the radial pulse. Okay, I'm sorry, the corded pulse. The corded pulse is in the neck. So if somebody's checking your pulse, I can feel my pulse right here. Okay, same thing here. When someone's checking your pulse, typically we use here, but you can check it in the neck as well. That is another area where, of course, your fragrance will last a lot longer because it is sitting on, I said radial pulse, the corded pulse. So it's doing this naturally all day. Furthermore, that's also a place where if you are to greet someone, usually what do? Okay, we give them both sides of our corded pulse. It comes naturally. We move our head. Also, think of these areas as areas that you manipulate the most. So this is also working with that pulse. You're always bending your elbows. You're always using your wrist. You're always moving your head. You're always moving your knees. You cannot walk without knees. Okay? You need your knees. So those are areas that you're always moving as well. So it's working with that pulse as well as your body movement. Then lastly, we have the pulse point, which is behind your knee. That one, I could never say the actual name. So it's called the popliteal. There we go. I keep wanting to say popliteal. It's the popliteal pulse. The popliteal pulse is the pulse that goes on behind the knee at the back of the leg. So there is a very large artery that runs back there. It's a very soft area. It's an area that you have to protect. Definitely. A lot of people don't think that way, but you do. But that is also an area where it is considered a pulse point, and it is a great pulse point for you to be able to spray your Le Pure fragrance in that area. A lot of times people neglect that area because they think that, oh, they just want to smell you up here. No, back there is also a great place. Now that we're talking about the popliteal pulse, let's talk about it a little bit deeper. So I have a friend who smells typically get to her really, really easily. So most people, they want to pull all of their fragrance all up in here, right here at the top or upper half of their body. But if you are one who you want your fragrance to linger, you want to smell nice, but you don't want it to attack anything up in this area, then you will use your popliteal pulse point to apply your fragrance. It's farther down, but remember, what's down must come up. So those scents are still going to raise, those scents are still going to pop out. They're just not going to be as strong as those of us who like to put it on the chest or the neck or the wrists or the elbows. It's still going to be nice and strong, but it's not going to be too strong for your allergies or your liking when it comes onto fragrances and how powerful they are to you. So the Papatio post is a good post to use, or a good post point to use for those of you that you want that fragrance. You want to be able to wear that fragrance and smell good to the outside world. You just don't want it to be overpowering when it comes on to your smell, or your sense of smell. Okay, so that is the targeted post points that you can utilize to allow your fragrances to smell a lot better. Those post points also go hand in hand, you guys. When you're showering, you definitely want to scour those areas. A lot of times, those are the areas that people seem to neglect the most. And I never understood why, but those are the areas that you also want to reset, because they do hold almost any and every smell that your body carries outside of the crevices. You know, we're not going to talk about the crevices, but outside of the crevices, okay? So we did talk about layering your scents, but let's talk about another tip. Avoid rubbing your perfumes or your fragrances in. You don't rub them. And this is why I said I would come back and talk about the brachial pulse, because that is one of the places where most people do this. They're doing this after you put it on. Okay, you don't rub your wrists together. That breaks down the top notes. That breaks down the fragrance, and the fragrance dissipates just that fast from you rubbing it. So what I would recommend you do is, if you're going to spray your fragrance here, so I'm going to use the Gucci Bloom, which is scent 214. I'm going to use that as an example, okay? So I'm going to spray it on my wrist. I like to do 2 sprays. I'm a 2 sprayer person. Take my other wrists and I just knock them together so that I can literally mimic them or copy them on each wrist. But you don't want to do this, because all you're doing is scrubbing it away. You're scrubbing away that top note. You're breaking the fragrance down really, really quickly. You're creating friction for the body to not absorb it extremely quickly. So it's best you just kind of hit your wrists together nice and gentle so that you can copy it onto both wrists. Or you don't do that at all, and you just nice and close, and allow it to linger and just dry on its own. Okay? That is the easiest way to do that. Now, like I said, for the brachial, most of the other areas, we're not doing this. This is really the only area that we typically will rub together. So that particular tip only really refers to the brachial pulse or the wrists, okay? It only refers to the wrists. Now, there is a such thing called a perfume primer. I don't really recommend perfume primers. I mean, a primer for me would just be an unscented lotion. That's another tip though. You are able to use perfume primers. They help with longevity. That's more of a very old, like a much older tip. I don't really see companies making perfume primers anymore. Primers for us are typically considered to be lotions or moisturizers or something of that nature. And then of course, the last tip is store your perfume properly. A lot of us didn't know that. I am guilty of that. Store your perfume properly. So you want to keep your perfume away from direct sunlight. So for those of you that like to keep your perfumes in the window, if maybe your area where that stuff sits is in front of a window where they get direct sunlight or heat. If they're in a place where it's always hot, if it's in a place where it's always humid, fragrances don't like that. They like to be in cool, I'm not going to say cold, but cool, semi-dark or shaded areas. So if your fragrances are sitting in front of a window, I'd highly recommend moving them, because all you are doing is diminishing those notes out of that fragrance, okay? You don't want to run the risk of you spending your quality money on these luxury designer-inspired fragrances, such as Le Pure or any of your other fragrances. And now they literally are in the bottle just dying out. So by the time you use them, because you know, when you buy a designer fragrance, you want that fragrance to last you 5 years because you spent so much money. Well, the good thing with Le Pure's fragrances is that you don't have to worry about that, because you got that designer scent. It's 50% stronger than the inspired designer actual perfume or cologne. And at the same time, you have enough that's gonna last you, and you can play with them. You can spray them. You can spray them all day long, and you still have enough, and it's still very cost effective for you to be able to get more. So still, no matter if you're using Le Pure or something else, just make sure that you're putting it in a nice cool place, and that's definitely going to help you. And then of course, exposure to the elements degrades the fragrance over time, so you don't want to run the risk of degrading that fragrance or toning it down too quickly, where you end up just wasting your money because it sat there and lingered and now it has no scent. So I hope you guys got some real good information about how to get your fragrances to last a lot longer. Now, something that I wanted to mention for you guys who have never tried the Le Pure scents, or maybe you are interested in trying, or you have some and you just didn't know how to make them smell even better than they are right now. We're doing a promotion where if you buy 1 bottle of our Le Pure scents, you get a free travel size atomizer of a different fragrance for you to sample. And then these are also refillable, so you can refill them with your favorite fragrance from Le Pure, or you get to try out the new fragrance to see how you like it. No code is needed for this, you guys. This is an ongoing thing that we'll be doing while supplies last. So if you visit crystalwonline.com, you'll be able to shop that particular sale. And then of course, if you guys are new here, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe. And once again, thanks for watching.